Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Megan Dowling, and thank you for tuning in to this week's Healthy Pregnancies and Healthy Kids video. So I hope everyone got a chance to check out the series that I talked about on Monday called The Truth About Vaccines. There's so much unbiased information in this series, and it's really going to help you become more informed about the decisions you make regarding vaccinations and your children. So if you haven't got a chance to check it out yet, I believe that they're still viewing the last episode until midnight tonight, and then hopefully they'll have an encore day tomorrow, which means that they're going to have most of this series up from the last 7 days, and you'll get a chance to take a peek at some of those videos. So, I alluded to last week that this week's topic is going to be my personal birth stories, and this is going to help you learn a little bit more about what my experience taught me. So, let's dive right in. I have 2 kids. My daughter is 5 years old, and my son is 20 months old. And during my first pregnancy with my daughter, I was in chiropractic college. And I actually had my daughter about 20 days after I graduated school, which was pretty good timing, actually. So my plan with my daughter was to have an all-natural vaginal birth. And I had a great pregnancy, and I had learned what I could about labor and birth through reading and through talking to other moms, and I felt, I was pretty prepared. So I went into labor about 3.5 weeks early. It happened to be Christmas morning. And I'd actually planned on having midwives attend my birth, but because of the holiday, they weren't available. So I had the attending OB, who I really didn't know anything about. Anyway, everything was progressing really well, aside from the back labor I was having, which was pretty bad. I eventually made it to 10 centimeters, and it came time to push. So I pushed for 2.5 hours on my back, and at one point towards the end of that, the OB came in and told me that my baby was posterior and that she wasn't descending fast enough, despite the fact that her heart rate was totally normal and she wasn't in any distress. So when the baby assumes a posterior position, this means that they're actually facing forward. And when they're facing forward, it requires a little extra space in the birth canal in order for the baby to descend. And that's really hard to accommodate, that extra space, when we're on our back, because the sacrums push forward when we're on our back. So it's hard for that birth canal to get much bigger. So with the information that I had available at the time, I agreed to have the C-section and actually felt a little bit of relief during that. Sorry, let me pick this up and hopefully someone will answer it. There we go. And anyway, I decided to have the C-section, and they went ahead and took me into the OR, and within a few minutes they had cut me open and gotten my baby out. So I had a lot of questions after my experience as to why I had needed a C-section, and the best answer that the OB could have given me, or did give me, was that I had a small pelvis. So my pelvis apparently was just not big enough to push out my baby, who was actually just 5 pounds, 15 ounces. And that didn't make a lot of sense to me, but that was, again, all the information that I had. It was even in my hospital records. So recovery from my C-section was really difficult. I had what they call postpartum blues because I felt disappointed in myself and for not really achieving the birth that I had wanted. And also nursing was a lot harder than I had ever expected it to be, which I hadn't really bothered to learn much about it, and found out that there's a pretty big learning curve for both mom and baby during nursing. So it really took me a long time to get out of the funk that I felt like I was in after my first birth. And it took me a long time to decide that I really wanted another baby. So about 3 years later, I got pregnant with my son, and I knew this time I wanted to do things differently. So I researched VBAC, which is vaginal birth after cesarean, and I tried to find an OB in my area that would accommodate my wish to have a VBAC. And I did. I found an OB who had a 90% success rate, and so I felt good about that. And at one point, when I was talking with her about my desire to have a VBAC, she had told me that because of my diagnosis of having a small pelvis, I actually had a very low chance of achieving a VBAC. So that was really upsetting to hear, but I continued to have my birth plan. I still wanted a VBAC. And when I was 34 weeks pregnant, I went into my OB appointment, and she sat me down and she told me that she had unfortunately lost her hospital privileges and that she could not attend my birth. So that really made me panic, and I was really feeling like my chances of having a successful VBAC were getting smaller and smaller. So I was really feeling like I needed to get more support from somewhere. And I had heard about doulas and how they can support the mama in birth, in labor, and how they decrease C-section rates. So I amazingly found a great doula who I connected with right away. She's also a chiropractor, so I knew we had that in common. And she was the one who actually led me to find a Webster chiropractor and get Webster chiropractic care for the last 6 weeks of my pregnancy. She also taught me exercises that would help the baby get into the best position. Sorry, here, I'm alone in the office. Somebody should be answering that. And she helped me also formulate a birth plan that would help me to get through labor and also through the postnatal period as well, what I wanted to happen after my baby was born. So I felt like I was in extremely capable hands once I had my support team put together with my husband, my doula, and my new OB, who I felt good about as well. So when it came time to go into labor, I had my doula there at my house, and she was helping me get into more comfortable positions to labor in. She knew when it was time to leave for the hospital. So when I arrived to the hospital, things were progressing really pretty quickly. And she had also suggested sitting on a birthing stool while pushing, which is basically like a chair with no bottom in it. And that's really helpful because you're laboring in an upright position. So you're able to let gravity help you push the baby out rather than being on your back and having the sacrum pushed in and having a smaller birth canal. And so, unfortunately, that's the most unnatural position for us to labor in, and yet it's the standard way to give birth in our country. So anyway, I pushed for 2 hours and successfully delivered my son via an unmedicated VBAC. And he was 7 pounds, 15 ounces, which is a full 2 pounds larger than my daughter was. So I know I learned that my small pelvis diagnosis was a bogus diagnosis that they just gave me in order to just justify the fact that I needed a C-section. So, accomplishing my birth goal was really empowering for me, and knowing that I was capable of delivering my baby as nature intended it helped me to heal the emotional trauma that I had from my previous birth experience. So as you can see, I had 2 very different births, and the healing that came from my second birth was something that I wanted to help other women achieve. So I know that the Webster chiropractic care I received with my son helped him to get in the best position for birth. So in the case of with my son, I didn't have any back labor, and also the support that I received from my doula, and the fact that I was able to push upright were all things that led to this successful outcome. So helping women achieve their goal of a VBAC requires the support of a network of birth professionals and knowledge of the elements that can really lead to a successful outcome. So I'm really honored when women choose me to care for them and to help them achieve their goal of birth. And I hope that learning of my experience helps you to know that achieving a successful VBAC is within your reach as well. So next week we'll be talking specifically about what research has shown regarding doulas and attending and the benefits that there is when they attend births, as well as how you can find one that you connect with. So have a great week, and feel free to comment, or if you have any questions about my birth stories, feel free to comment in the section below. And take care. Bye.